This hour of the Alan Autry Show is sponsored by Sinlaw, the most realistic artificial grass in the Central Valley.
NFL quarterback to Hollywood, to the mayor's office, and now behind the mic at KXEX. This is the Alan Autry Show. No retreat.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What the hell's going on out here? Everybody grabbing out there. Nobody. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
We are led.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX.
And welcome to Alan Autry No Retreat. It's Free for All Friday here in beautiful Fresno, California, coming to you from the beautiful Manchester Center, KXEX Studios, in the heart of the beautiful People's Republic of California. We still have a bastion of freedom, still breathing, still kicking, called the Central Valley here in California. So do not lose faith, folks. We will reclaim our liberties in this state. This state will return to the Golden State. I know we talk about a lot of doom and gloom on this stuff because there's a lot of doom and gloom out there leading us, for goodness sake. Here in this state in particular, all blue states are having a very difficult time. Out of control crime, school systems that are bought and paid for by the, there is systemic stuff going on in this country state. There's systemic wokeism for sure that have somehow, some way, we woke up one day and this craziness called wokeism had infiltrated everything. Local government, state government, federal government, schools, military, corporate America, you name it. But the good news is we're fighting back, and it's the righteous fight. We're going to do it the right way. I'm not talking about, all this stuff the media is going crazy about in terms of the threats to the jurors, potential jurors, and the Donald Trump case in Atlanta and all these trials that are going to be coming up and being intimidated. Look, if you participate in that, don't call yourself a conservative. Don't call yourself a Republican. Don't call yourself, I'm going to go as far as to say, don't insult the rest of us by calling yourself even an American. If you're born here and you take up violence and you threaten violence like that, get on the last train to Clarksville and head out to some South American crazy country or some Eastern European country that's that believes in those sort of things where might is right and those kind of things are acceptable. I get it. Violence, there's a two-tiered situation here going on in this country. How it developed, I think we're finding out why, but those of us who knew better sat back and didn't do anything. We didn't think it would end up as pervasive as it is right now, that you would even hear the words defund the police. You would never hear the words like we need an open border, we need no borders. We never thought we would hear people clamoring for war with a nuclear country, Russia over there. I mean, I get it, but it's going to be a long haul back. We got to understand what's ahead of us, the toughness, the magnitude of it, but we have to fight the right fight. And it does not include violence. That's what the other side does. Now, I don't mean just the political other side. There is a mindset that, you just take the law in your own hands. And I'm not talking about protest. I'm not talking about passionate protest. I'm not talking about going out there, waving the signs, jumping up and down, and expressing yourself on a street corner or in a group of thousands. But you don't cross the line and burn down, private property, kill innocent people because you're mad at somebody else. You're just going to go kill somebody that looks like the person that you hate. You hate Trump, you don't just go around killing other people with orange hair. Because if you did that, you would kill about 50% of the woke people that you love. You know, it's I'm talking about the orange hair. Bad joke, but you get my point. We have to fight the righteous fight. So wherever God has placed you, if you believe in America, that America's fundamental principles and these fundamental tenets of freedom and liberty and justice for all, that you believe in a Bill of Rights, that you have inalienable rights, some of which are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that no man, no woman, no human being can take from you because they are God given. If you believe that to be true, you believe those are sacred principles that you want to live under, you want your kids to live under. If you believe in that, then it's time to pay attention, it's time to participate, and it's time to do what you can from the position that you're in that God has put you. As I said, whether it's behind a mic or at the dinner table, where it's work, and I'm not saying go to work and preach and go crazy. You know what I'm saying. Keep it in the forefront of your mind. Let the powers that be know that you're not going to put up with it anymore. And you know how you do that? You do it at the ballot box. You vote these folks out because you don't know. Say what you want to about Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino has good points. Today he had a great point. Until this nonsense of defund the police, reward criminals, punish law-abiding citizens, letting people in that you don't know who they are, next thing you know, they have a hammer in their hand going after Paul Pelosi. That got Nancy Pelosi's attention. Okay, I doubt that she has the same attitude towards immigration, that just come one, come all, forget about the background check. This guy was in Canada. But you hear about it almost every day where some undocumented people got in. And it doesn't take but a small percentage to create havoc and to exact irreversible pain and sorrow and hurt on your family. You hear about it, sadly, almost every day. And why wouldn't we hear it every day with the number of people that are being let in here that we do not have any idea who they are? And until that pain gets to the doorstep of the people that support this, and I'm talking about you all that keep voting for this woke mindset, this absolutely insane agenda that there is, a million genders, and the state has the right through the school system to support a 7-year-old's decision, to change their gender and not tell the parent. And you say, well, Alan, that doesn't happen. It does. If it happens in one public school, you know something's up, because that is so radically crazy that you got to stamp that out quickly. You don't let that get any traction at all. And we've talked about this on this show. I will fight beside a gay individual, a trans individual, a person of any color, if their rights are being violated because they are gay, trans, or particular color, and they are a victim of real discrimination. Nobody will fight harder for them and beside them than me. And you know what? I'm not alone. There's a lot of folks that are conservative leaning that feel the same thing, but you won't hear about them on NBC, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times. Why? Because it doesn't fit their narrative of what a conservative is supposed to be. You hate conservatives. Why? Because they're racist, they're misogynist, they're homophobic, Islamophobic. So any person, and that's why they're having a real difficult time with Vivek Ramaswamy. But the good news is I saw, unbelievably so, Jim Acosta is, and Jim's a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. He's the one who used to take on Trump. He's irritatingly confrontational, even with people who support him. Very petulant, very well, just go after you. One of those guys that says, I know you are, but what am I? He has a personality that does not translate well. And again, I have liberal friends that have said the same thing. But I watched him last night because, as Larry Elder says, I watch all these liberal shows so you don't have to. I can bring it back to you. And I try to bring it to you honestly. When I see something that doesn't fit maybe your narrative or my narrative about an individual, I'm going to tell you. And what I saw did not fit my narrative on Acosta. That is not a that I'm going to embrace Acosta, how he does things, his beliefs. No way, because he, after this particular interview, I'm getting ready to talk about here for just a few seconds, he was back to the same old Jim Costa, just painting his this picture of Trump and anybody that supports them need to be, probably put in jail. But he had Vivek Ramaswamy on the show, Republican candidate for president. And by gosh, didn't he did something that I'd never seen him do when he had a Republican guest, because to Vivek's credit, most Republicans won't go on with Jim Acosta because they know what they're going to get, but they don't feel confident enough in their positions to be able to fire back. Or they're afraid that the producers are going to edit the interview and just because they could do some amazing things in the editing. But he let Vivek Ramaswamy talk. And he was making points that Jim Acosta really didn't have any comebacks for in terms of why he's supporting, why he would not, why he would pardon Trump if he was elected president, why he's against the woke agenda, and just brilliantly articulated his position with clarity, with passion, very persuasive. And you can see it actually landing for at least a moment on what little logical reasoning and critical thinking that Jim Acosta may have left, in his mind and in his heart. I saw it for the first time. And maybe that's where it starts. I know we could say, well, Alan, that's a long ways from Jim Acosta listening to Vivek Ramaswamy, a Republican, giving him a chance to talk, and actually having a civil discussion with him, and this country being healed and being able to work together, at least like we have in the past, before all of this insanity happened and you have a country divided like never before, like never since the Civil War. I understand that, but it's a start. I'm seeing things out there that give me hope. I'm seeing folks that have heretofore that are very powerful, that have obviously taken Biden's side on all of his policies, including the senseless and unwinnable war in the Ukraine, even his border policies. I see them starting to open up. There's some light at the end of the tunnel. And I don't think it's an oncoming train. I'm going to go with my optimistic nature, because I'm an optimist by nature, but I'm also a realist. And I have to be an optimist because, I made a living for 30-some years in Hollywood with this face. I got to be the ultimate optimist. I believed I could make it in Hollywood. I could actually go in there and there would be some roles for a guy that looked like me. But I'm also a realist. But I do believe we can come back from this. Now, in a diverse country, you're never going to have 300 million, 400 million, we're on the way to 400 million people, getting together and singing "We Are the World" together. You're just not going to do that. What you can hope and what you have to work for and be committed to is a set of basic principles that run through every culture, every ethnicity, every race. And you got to define those. In America, it used to be, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, it meant a fair shake for everyone, regardless of your color, your gender, your politics. You had a chance to reach the American dream. If you worked hard, played by the rules, kept your nose clean, did the right thing, you had a chance. Now, that was not true for African Americans for many years. They let that known, led by Martin Luther King and other people that you don't even know their names. They gave their heart and soul to those civil rights protests, and they stayed with it. God bless them, because laws were changed, the Constitution was changed, and people started to change. So, that fair shake for all is a basic principle that runs through every civil society, every decent person. I mean, what person, whether they live in Bel Air or living in a little hut in the Sudan, doesn't want their kids to be safe when they go outside to play? When the kids go outside Beverly Hills, you don't want to have to hold your breath that somebody's going to kidnap them, abuse them, and maybe do something worse. Same thing in the Sudan. They love their kids. They don't want the kid to go out that hut and be shot down by an errant bullet because you got two warlords fighting for control of your country. Who doesn't want to have an education to so their kids can better themselves? I mean, a good quality education, not this reprogramming and this grooming, and just an education about the world, how other people live, being able to do math without being told math is racist, so you don't have to learn it. So you can stay here in this little box that we can control you. Math is racist. Can you believe that? There are people actually saying that science is racist. It goes as far as to say if you live your life totally in colorblind, that you don't see color, and you even marry someone of a different color, you're a racist if you don't see their color every single day and let it register. Imagine if you're married to a black woman and every day you've got a note of their blackness. If you're a black lady married to a white guy, every single day you've got to make note that they're white. That's the first thing you have to look at when you get up, is let their whiteness or their blackness resonate with your soul, process it, and go get about 10 books from Ken Day X, whatever it is, and that other guy that writes all of this stuff that tells you that you got to do this stuff. If you're not, you're racist. It's insanity. But again, I go back as we go to break. I'm seeing some things turn around. I'm seeing people that are very, very liberal, not the hopelessly sick wokesters. We just pray for them. God, we can't do anything. God could still, if he chooses to. So don't give up on them. There's certain things you're not going to change. You're not going to change. Just do your best. Let God do the rest, as we say at the end of every show. But I am seeing it, and it gives me hope, and I hope it gives you some hope. I believe this country can come back from where we are right now. And not only hold on to your seats, hold on to your hats. I'm a big days gone by. Boy, the good old days. Yeah, we had some good old days in the United States of America after World War II. All right, I get it. I think we can not only come out of this, not only get through it, but come out a better country than we've ever been. I believe that. We'll be right back.
Girl, I'm spending my dimes, wasting my time.
Okay, I'm ready in about a minute, whenever you're ready. How much time we got left in the show, Jeremy?
About 30 minutes.
Okay. Love you. I love y'all. Man, I tell you, I'd like to send a little shout out to the Heat of the Night fans that watched that show all those years. I was getting by, went through, I won't get into the whole story, but went through some stuff before that show started. And a lot of wounds, most of them self-inflicted. But let's just say when that show came along and Carol O'Connor decided to cast this really, really unknown dude named Alan Autry in that role of Bubba, it was a game changer. But my soul had been transformed slightly less than a year earlier by the good Lord. So I was a different guy, but I didn't know where my career was going. I was 34 years old. I didn't know if I was going to die without a pot the you-know-what in as an actor. I knew I was too old to change professions. At least I thought I was. So I was stuck in being an actor, for better or for worse. This guy, this wonderful man, changed my life. Casted me in the Heat of the Night. Proceeded to run like 5-6 years. And you all out there that watch that show, you put food on my table. You paid my rent and eventually a mortgage for me and my mother. Mother never owned her home, ever, till I brought her the deed to the little house she was living in and paid it off. And I wish you could have seen the look on her face and tears running down her cheek. The same Okie woman who used to go out and chop cotton so she could get me not another pair of pants, but afford the iron-on patches when I got a hole in those pants. And I'm not doing some sob story. I'm just telling you the way it was. And a dad, he wasn't living at that time, his mom. But I thought of him, I knew when she was having those tears, he would have not shown those tears, or at least he would have let me see them. He would have went someplace, but I know he would have been so proud. But my point is, I'm just so thankful to all of y'all, and I hope I took that blessing. And I know now why God did not let me have that blessing from y'all until that time. I wasn't ready for it. I would have blown it. I would have done a lot of things that were not in God's will. I would have had the money that I made on that show and fame that I got on that show, and even the modicum of fame. I'd say Carol Connor, Howard Rollins, they were the star of that show. I was just a side dish that came with the meal. That's the biggest thing I ever had, and I hope I haven't let you down in how I've lived my life that stands. I know some people think with this show that I have that disagree with me, but I will promise you this: I'll always come from my heart. I will try to never be mean spirited. If I do something or call a name, it'll be in good, having fun. I just don't want to be mean. I think you can be firm and strong and not cross lines and be disrespectful. So hopefully I can do that on the show. But anyway, I just want to take the time to thank y'all. We're ready to come back anytime, Jeremy.
All right, here we go.
This hour of the Alan Autry Show is sponsored by Simlaw, the most realistic artificial grass in the Central Valley.
And welcome back to Alan Autry No Retreat here on Free for All Friday. I know you probably agree with me out there, folks. I hate when people say, I told you so. You did that. Look, I told you not to go and make that deal. Now look at you, lost all your money. I told you not to get involved with that girl. Look what happened. She broke your heart. I told you not to do this and do that, and we all love to hear that, right? So I'm trying to, how do I say this on this next subject? Let me try to just say that, they say it's not what you say, it's how you say it, the inflections you get. So let me use all of my acting skills to say something that nobody likes to hear. And really sometimes can make the person saying it seem like they think they know it all. But I don't know any other way to say what I'm about to say other than, folks, I told you so. And in this particular reference, I'm talking about the war in Ukraine. Right from the get-go, right from that big caravan moving towards Kiev, I said, you need this country, Western Europe, Russia, China, Belarus, Poland, all of them over there, need to call a summit, get to the negotiating table, and work this thing out. I said, number two, and when I saw the direction we were going as a country because of this distaste for Putin, I don't know. I think they switch in terms of who the woke left, and Biden hates worse, Trump or Putin. It goes back and forth. And in some cases, both have earned a lot of that disdain, disrespect, and in some cases, hate, some. But to equate President Trump with Putin is a real stretch, and I think not very accurate. But when I took the emphatic position, and I gave you the reason why, that we should not go into this war and start giving military aid from the standpoint of where we were and are at this time, but where we were back then, that it was a no-win situation. It was going to eventually be ended, the war, by diplomacy or a nuclear war. There was no other way. And it's not that I am a big political science scholar or that I've read all the military books out there. There's people that do that, call themselves military experts, political experts. And you know what Thomas Sowell says about an expert? Some experts in the room hightail it, get out of there. And to him, PhD just means piled higher and deeper. The BS. Nobody is an expert on the inexact nature of geopolitics. You can learn some from the past. Certainly can. Because as I say, the past doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And this Ukraine situation was rhyming, harmony, right in harmony with the Vietnam conflict. How we got into it, almost a carbon copy. And I felt this sinking feeling in my gut. I'm going, oh, Carlos Allen, gosh, please be wrong. Please be wrong. But I could not shake the feeling. The reason I couldn't shake the feeling because I can't unknow what I know. I can't disexperience what I experienced during that Vietnam War. And I'm seeing it unfold right before my eyes, before a very naive country and a person who should know better, Joe Biden, and the senators and congressmen that went through Vietnam during that area, completely either forgetting about it or was part of some kind of situation that they or somebody else benefited from that war in Vietnam. Because trust me, the defense contractors all over the world benefited from Vietnam. The people that didn't, the 50-some thousand that died, and as the Creedence Clearwater wrote in their song, I'm no fortunate son. It was a cruel, bitter, fixed, rigged war. Nobody, no kid went there that had means, that had money, who had a relative in the government. You go to that wall and look at that wall, and you'll see Robert Jones, Natchez, Mississippi. Manuel Gomez, a little town in Texas, El Paso, Texas. Gary Dent, Riverdale, California. My friend, my fullback on my football team. Domingo Garcia, Riverdale, California. Linebacker on my football team. On that wall in Vietnam. It was really a disgusting, grotesque war. Now, it was initiated and got into for the right reasons, to stop communism, a godless system that was spreading all over Southeast Asia. This country needed help. They asked the United States to come in. And we went in with the attitude is, we'll be here as long as it takes. Sounds familiar? We'll be with you as long as it takes to make sure your country is not overrun by the communist Chinese and their surrogates, the North Vietnamese. Sound familiar? Well, flash forward from the mid-'60s, early 60s actually, all the way to, I believe, 1972, when Nixon ended the war, and that's when you saw the helicopters leaving Saigon. It was complete chaos with people hanging onto the helicopters and falling off. We abandoned them. Sound a little bit like Afghanistan with the plane going off? Well, it should. Because it's, I wouldn't say exactly the same, but it was eerily similar. But I said on here, the reason I'm taking my stand is, number one, what I've experienced. I see the same thing unfolding. And I just got a little common sense. Anybody with a little common sense would know you don't do what this president and this Congress and this media and Republicans like Lindsey Graham are doing. If you have a sense of intelligence about winning a war like this, and if you have any empathy or compassion for the people that are going to lose their life because of this fruitless effort to try to grind the Russian army into dust, because that's what Lloyd Austin says is victory to him. Not to just stop fighting, that the victory to him means you so degenerate the armed forces of Russia. You beat them so badly, you grind them into dust. To quote him, they are never a factor on the world stage again militarily. My goodness, this guy is the defense secretary. I'm sitting here just an old Okie from sitting behind a mic at KXCX, an old unemployed actor. And I know, you know, a lot more smarter than me out there, but I know you're not going to grind a superpower that has many more nuclear missiles than we do, that has a space program that you're getting ready to arm with nuclear weapons. You're going to grind that into dust. They're just going to give up and say, march into Moscow. Americans, mark into Moscow, Zelensky. Come on in. Hitler revisited. Hitler marched into Paris. We're just going to open the gates. It was a foolish, dangerous, extremely sinister policy because it was doomed to failure. And you know who was not going to get hurt in that? Lloyd Austin, Mark Milley, Joe Biden. Why? Because they're not going to be in a trench over there in the middle of Ukraine, over there trying to take back Crimea with no chance, a chance of a fart in a whirlwind of getting that done. And I said, let me just further say why you're not going to win that war. It's simple math. Russia has too many people, too many soldiers. Ukraine has too few soldiers. Many have already left the country. You don't have enough people to fight the war. You don't have enough equipment to fight the war. You have no air force to protect your troops. You, with just those three factors alone, you don't win that war against the Russians. But what does the media do? And this conspiracy to mislead the American people at the expense of a lot of innocent people that are losing their lives, old people, young people, hospitals being bombed left and right. A lot of that blood's on the hands of the American lawmakers, Joe Biden, the Congress. And I'm going to make a statement. I know but I've thought a lot about it. We're getting to the point because we know so much now more that Ukraine's not going to win this war flat out militarily. If you continue to support that effort and say, for as long as it takes to grind the Russian military into dust and beat them flat out military with a surrender, they're going to leave Crimea, they're going to leave Donbass. I hate to say it, but I got to be truthful with you. You know, saying truth will set you free, first to make you miserable. You're going to have blood on your hands. That blood's on your hands. Now, on the upside, I'll take the I told you so away. And what is making me feel a little bit better, although my heart aches for all those who have lost their lives so far needlessly because of this war. It shouldn't be Macron calling for people to come to the peace table. Xi Jinping calling for it. It should have been Joe Biden. Has not called once for peace. But we're starting to see now where the mainstream media, who was part of this partnership to get behind the Ukraine, mind you, the third most corrupt nation by the United Nations task force that studies these things, I believe it's the United Nations, but a very reputable think tank. It does these sort of studies. Said Ukraine, before all this happened, third most corrupt nation over there in Eastern and Western Europe. I'm sure there's some in other places that may be worse, but we do a lot of business there. And the third most corrupt country. Okay? We're starting to see now the media, who, as I said, was part of this call with President Biden, with the hawks, the warmongers, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, corporate media, the defense industry, Wall Street, they all benefit by war monetarily. And Laura Fisher, if you're out there listening, you've brought this to our attention many, many times. And young lady, you are dead on. I should probably use a different word than dead on because it's too ironic. And constantly on this phone for the last year and a half, I open my feeds up. Washington Post, Ukraine winning. Putin's going to fall. Putin's own people are going to kill him. New York Times, Ukraine claims another victory. Russia's army impotent, incompetent. ABC, Ukraine on the verge of victory. NBC, CBS, CNN, Ukraine, Zelensky on the cover of Time. He's kicking Russia's butt. Putin doesn't have a chance. It's just a matter of time before Russia is driven back to Moscow and they have been effectively ground into dust, of which Lloyd Austin and Mark Milley said was their goal. That's what we've got for a year and a half. Every once in a while, there'd be an article maybe in the Wall Street Journal on Fox that said, oh, wait a minute, where are you getting this information? The Ukraine does not even release numbers. In fact, I noticed a trend at all of these articles that I would read about how many Russians were killed and how many Ukrainians were killed. At the end, they made a little bit of disclaimer that they had no official totals that they could confirm. They were simply trusting what the Ukrainian information director and the Ukrainian government was telling them. Okay. If you want more money, what are you going to say? You're winning the war or losing the war? Who wants to be on the side of the loser? Right? You see sports teams like losing, you're good players. Hey, I don't want to end my career on a losing team. I want to sign as a free agent, a football player. I want to go to the 49ers. I want to go to the Chiefs. I don't want to sit here with the Las Vegas Raiders. I always going to get a dig at them. But, of course, they're winning. Zelensky's everywhere, getting money. We're kicking butt. Well, I always say you want to know the truth. You need to talk to the people that are actually there. Actually talk to the soldiers that are there. And if they're not fearful of their lives being killed if they tell the truth, they more than likely will tell you the truth. Now, I hate to usually read an article, but I think I need to read. It's not that long, and I won't read the whole thing. But we're starting to see the media now because the lie, the big lie in Ukraine that they've been perpetuating, can no longer be masked. They can't hide it anymore, that they've been just feeding us a line of bullcrap. Ukraine has not been winning this war. Russia's been winning this war for a long, long time. And Russia was going to win this war when it started. Okay, and it's like Eric Adams in New York. He tried to say, oh, we have no immigrant problem. Look, they're not out on the streets. We're taking care of them. We're a sanctuary city. We're fine. Meanwhile, he's trying to get money from Washington, D.C., like $12 billion to take care of them. No, we're fine, until they spilled out on the street. They had no more room for them, and there they are at Union Station all over the sidewalk. And he goes, oops, my bad. Yeah, okay, we got too many. We can't house them. And why? Because he couldn't run from it. Too many people walked by there and said, hey, the mayor said we had this thing under control. That ain't under control, what I'm looking at. And we're seeing the same thing happen in Ukraine. Now, here's the article from today by ABC News. All right, I'm going to read some of this. Pay attention to this because there's some amazing things in this article that I told you was going to happen in terms of escalation. Because remember I said when it came out, Biden said there's not going to be any tanks, no planes, no long-range missiles, none of that stuff that could possibly provoke Russia and China to escalate on their end. Well, what happens? Well, you're not getting any tanks. Well, now they're getting Abrams tanks. Oh, you're not going to get any long-range missiles that can reach Russia. Now they have long-range missiles. Well, you're not going to get any airplanes. You're not going to get any F-16s. They're going to get F-16s delivered now. Well, there's not going to be any American soldiers over there. We got over 10,000, probably more, grouped on the countries bordering Ukraine right now. And then we have something else. But listen to this article, ABC News. We got about 13 minutes left. Bear with me. Like I said, I don't like to normally read from an article, but I think this is very important, especially considering the source, a huge participant in the media with great legacy in terms of a reputation back in the day when we used to trust ABC, NBC, and CBS. I know we have all the cable stations, but those three still, people listen to them and hope that they can get the truth. Heretofore they haven't. But today, here's what it says. Headlines. Ukraine taking heavy casualties 10 weeks into its counteroffensive. Written by Tom Burridge. There's mounting evidence that Ukraine has been taking heavy casualties in its counteroffensive, which began roughly 10 weeks ago. ABC News spoke with two former soldiers who are contracted in a Special Forces division of the Ukrainian military and who were both injured during an operation in eastern Ukraine 2 weeks ago. Did you know we had former American soldiers fighting over there right now? If I tell you the next step was going to be American soldiers there. Oh, gosh. Well, let's move on. Then we're going to come back to that. Yeah, there's American soldiers on the ground right now in that war. Both soldiers are currently in a hospital in Kiev that said they hope to be transferred to Germany for surgery this week in order to remove shrapnel from the bodies. The men said their team's mission was to seize control of a village on the outskirts of Donetsk City, which had been occupied by a Russian-controlled militia since 2014. They're dug in. One of the men, a former U.S. soldier from Texas who goes by the call sign Tango, said his unit of dozens of men took 85% casualties, and that 2 of their comrades were killed when the team was ambushed while advancing into Russian-occupied territory. 40% of the unit was so badly injured they were rendered combat ineffective. The other U.S. Army veteran, who goes by the call sign Goldfish, said it was immediately apparent that they were up against a, quote, very organized resistance from Russian troops. Quote, it was definitely a very professional force that we're fighting against the U.S. Army. We were fighting against, the U.S. Army veteran said from Alaska. He spoke to ABC News in his hospital room in Kiev, which he was sharing with 3 other wounded soldiers. ABC News also contacted 2 other Ukrainian soldiers interviewed in earlier phases of the war, and they said they also had been injured past few weeks. A Western man with years of military experience who is now contracted with the Ukrainian military said he sustained a serious injury as well. He said, we lost 3 Leopard tanks, that's those German-made tanks, in one day because they were just told to drive forward into a minefield. Now, we've been told that the Ukrainian generals are the best. They're making the Russian generals look like idiots. They're making very smart decisions. But this guy on the ground said, quote, we lost 3 Leopard tanks in one day because they were just told to drive forward into a minefield. He added that newly mobilized Ukrainian troops often appeared to lack the necessary training for complicated offensive operations on the battlefield. The soldier who joined the Ukrainian military more than a year ago said dozens of men from his battalion had been involved in offensive operations since the beginning of June. Around 80% of those men had been injured. However, it seems, talking about the equipment, the U.S. equipment supplied the Bradley infantry fighting equipment. Quote, it seems like they, the Ukrainian soldiers, have been taught to use them but not to employ them effectively in a technical sense on the battlefield. It goes on to say, it's not going. This is not going to be quick and decisive, the soldier said. Goes on to say, I'm going to skip forward. He says, talks about a Ukrainian official said the war was now in a decisive phase and insisted that Ukraine needed even more military support from the United States and its partners, including long-range ATCM missiles. Ukraine has promised the United States it would only use the missiles to strike Russian assets in occupied parts of Ukraine. Yeah, right. And it goes on to say the senior official insisted that Ukraine urgently needed more military aid, and also that the winter is coming, and they're very concerned about that because the Russian troops are very experienced and are very good at fighting in cold weather. That's one article. Monday, I'm going to read you the other article. That was the truth, in my opinion, because it came from people who are actually there fighting the war. So what do you do now? So what? Now what? I believe we're going to continue to get these reports. I believe the media is going to start covering this more fairly, more accurately, that they care about at least a little bit about their legacy of being on the right side of history. And right now, a case could be made that they have continued to do this conspiratorial, nefarious operations with the Democratic National Committee and corporate big tech to lie to the American people about a lot of things, like the Russian, that Trump and Putin somehow fixed the election together. Whether you love Trump, hate Trump, somewhere in the middle. I mean, it was exhaustively examined and investigated, and yet the media found that there was nothing to it. Yet the media constantly told you, based on really no evidence at all, and then they found out what evidence was being used was false information, that courts were lied to, that people deep inside the FBI, the DOJ, and really actually not deep inside, the head honchos of the DOJ, the FBI involved in this. And you're getting now I think they're hopefully in these corporate rooms or in the leadership war rooms, if you will, somebody's saying, look, the public's going to catch on to us after a while. Our ratings and poll numbers are historically low now. Less than 20% of the people believe what we're selling. They less than 20% believe. When you read the Washington Post, New York Times, they believe even their constituents know that they're lying, but they accept it because they have adopted that Marxist deal. The ends justify the means. So the media, as long as it's on their side, backing their guy, backing their policies, will lie on, brother and sister, because that's morally okay in Marxism. Why? Because we don't recognize God. We don't recognize as lying being a sin, something bad. Lying's just a tool in our toolbox that when we want to use it to further our cause, we just take the old lie wrench out, the old Lysol out. And we just lie to get us there. And the reason it's not morally bad is because once we're in power, we have total power. We know what's best for these plebeians and these little uneducated lowlifes around the country. You know, we love them. They're not as intellectually superior as we are. So we got to take care of them. Someday they will evolve to be as smart as we are. Soon we'll have maybe enough government money to send them all to Harvard, Columbia, Yale, and be able to come out an enlightened individual that, we'll be so enlightened and we'll be so perfect. Who needs a God? We can convince them that they can be their own God. So let's just lie whenever we need to. Even if, in a war, to get rid of a president who's a sitting president, to put a political opponent of our ideology in prison for absolutely nothing, basically. I got news for you, folks. It is not a crime to contest an election. Now, they put this man in jail, because I'm changing the subjects, free for all Friday, but it's all tied in. Hopefully I connect a little dot there about honesty and integrity. We're not getting that in the reporting on the Ukraine war. Hopefully we're getting there now. But at what cost? I tell you, thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands. The estimate today that came out of the New York Times, 500,000 soldiers killed. They're saying 300,000 Russians, a couple 100,000 Ukrainians. Probably reverse that. But if this is allowed to happen, then when somebody contests an election, gets thrown in prison for life, and you know the charges that Trump has facing him? Do you know that the maximum, because out there raise their hand. I can't see it, but I know there's a lot of hands going up. Right? Who thinks that a jury in Washington, D.C., Fulton County, Georgia, or New York would give the maximum punishment to Donald Trump if he was convicted? I can see it. I can see my mind's eye, hands going up off mind's eye. No doubt. Jeremy, maximum. Do you know in Georgia with her, all the charges against him, people are talking about 300 years in prison. No, that's not the maximum. Do you realize these charges he's convicted on them? He can face the death penalty. You heard me right. Look it up. You've got a man who's polling at 53% heading into an election year of the Republican Party, the opponent of Joe Biden, who gets a free pass on everything. There's more evidence out there to convict him of charges that would have put a president away forever. Bribery and on. And who knows who was knocked off over there. I'm not saying he did it, but you're talking about the Ukraine. Anything to protect the Ukraine corrupt government prior to this war was being done over there. If you don't believe that, you're very naive. But this man is facing the death penalty. And you say that happens and you flash forward 10, 15, 20 years. And you're trying to convince the young people who hear about this, because you're taking delight in the historical nature of putting a president, that 45th president, in prison, the first president ever to face an indictment, the first president to face 2 indictments, First president to face 3 indictments. First president historically 4th time. First president to be impeached once. First president to be impeached twice. It's historical. It's historical. These people are giddy. They want to see that mugshot. They think they can convince all of you people to believe in life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness and believe in low taxes, a secure border, and safe streets, that you're suddenly going to buy into their agenda, that you can send your kid to school and you'll be just fine when they take your 7-year-old and support them to change their gender without telling you. They think you'll be just fine with that once you see how they crucify anybody that crosses them. They can take the most powerful voice of conservatism, put it in jail, and watch them rot or execute them. Why? The ends justify the means. They believe in this horrific system so much, this godless ideology. And as I said before, these folks hate Trump more than they love their country. But how do you explain that to the kids? I defy you to explain one of those charges. Yeah, I mean, if you have to take an hour and a half to describe accurately a charge, it's probably not a crime. I mean, that's a thumbnail rule, but it probably is. You know, did he kill somebody? No. Did he take money for policy? No. Go down the line. It takes forever to even get into what crime you're charging him with, and you're saying these crimes deserve the death penalty if convicted max? Ah! All right, folks. So that's your note. Have a great weekend. Love you so much. Just do your best. Let God do the rest. And I promise you, it's going to turn out the way it's supposed to. Love y'all. Bye-bye now.
Just sing a song and bring the sun.